tried this again. I tried this once and my dog started barking. I don't have a whole lot of energy today, so I'm going to be a little humdrum, I think. Okay, this video I'm going to talk about hospitalization. And since most of us who have bipolar disorder will experience this at least once. And I myself, let's see, I was diagnosed in my late 20s. I'm almost 40. So in that period of time, I've probably been in the hospital 7 times. I have like clusters of where I was not doing well and would be in and out, and then have a longer period of time where I was not hospitalized, and then have, like a year or more, 2-3 years, and then I would have another cluster of being in and out, in and out. The last time, I'm actually on a good run, about 4 or 5 years since the last hospitalization. So I almost hospitalized this past winter, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And I've had all kinds. Well, actually, my first hospitalization was when I was 15 in the 80s, and I'm going to talk about that too later. So why do we end up in the hospital? Well, one reason is when our symptoms first become apparent enough, and we find ourselves in the hospital so that we can be observed by the staff and the physicians, our symptoms and signs, and for a diagnosis. And then the probably most common reason is you're going along, you're taking your meds, you're doing your thing, and then for some reason you have a mood episode. Sometimes we'll be taking medication that works fabulous, and then it decides it's not to work for us, and we need it adjusted. You may have to go in and get the dosage adjusted and be in the hospital until you are safe to leave after it. I'm just totally sucking at this right now. Or you may have to change medications altogether, different kind. That is the thing, is you go in the hospital when, and they're going to ask you, if you are a danger, possible danger, or are a danger to yourself or others. That's the key thing. And sometimes people aren't at that, don't have that, but they're still seriously ill, and a hospital may be full, and they're trying to figure out a way to manipulate what you say into making it sound like you are a danger to yourself or others, just to get you admitted because you need it. So, if someone's going like this to you, have you any thoughts of hurting yourself because you need to be in the hospital and this is the criteria we can only admit you through? Sometimes that happens. I just have to throw that in there, otherwise I forget. Another reason, big time reason, people with bipolar disorder end up in the hospital is because they decided to stop their medication. And they end up manic or depressed, but usually manic, and they end up in the hospital. And they need to be restarted on their medications. And then another reason is there's nothing going on with your moods per se, but you're having a side effect or bad response, a bad side effect, adverse reaction to a medication you're on. And you need to be observed and to make sure you're physically healthy, and then see what medication will work for you. The kinds of hospitals, well, obviously, there's the good and the bad. We don't have a lot of resources and money hospitals in the private, state, and then the private, hospitals that are nicer. But for the most part, you're gonna find in the U.S. hospital, either you're gonna be on a psychiatric floor in a medical hospital, or be in a building that is just specifically for psychiatric disorders. In my experience, and I ask this when I find a new psychiatrist, what hospital are you associated with? Where do they send their patients? Because if they send their patients to a psychiatric floor in a medical hospital, no. I want a doctor that is working in a psychiatric hospital is just an entity all on its own, because they tend to be more proactive, focus on the staff's more educated, they focus more on discharge and how to stay out and educate you, and the staff's trained, and the other just seems to be a place to put you, to babysit, basically. So I prefer those, the strictly buildings for psychiatric problems. How long? Well, mostly people stay about a week or two these days. Has to do with what your symptoms are, how severe your symptoms are, and sadly, if you have insurance or not. In the U.S. anyway. In the 80s, when I was 15, I was in the hospital for a month. They don't do that anymore. That was how much my dad's insurance allowed for a year. So they just took it all. And I was in there for a month after a suicide attempt and depression diagnosis. But any other time has been between a week and 1 and 2 weeks. So I'm going to stop there and finish on a new video.